Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time to discuss whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. We are here because God is concerned about that which concerns you. So you may discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families, whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind. God is always concerned about that which concerns you. So we are here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is Earth's finest water. I'm going to say to all of our listeners and viewers who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast, we thank you for your commitment and your support as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here to address whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate, right here in 3D, every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I want to begin by addressing a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your family is overloading you with family obligations without offering any assistance. And you want to know whatever, so let me finish your communication first of all. You said whatever they don't want to do, they don't do, but you have to do everything else to attend to family needs. So let me begin by saying you want to know, how do you make them realize that it is unfair to you? So let me respond by saying, first and foremost, you're only one person. Do what you can do. Do what you're capable of doing. Do what you can do and what you know God has assigned for you to do. And allow others to do the rest. In other words, you're going to always do more than what is expected of you by those that you're assisting. And so I'll go a little further. You are helping your parents who are elderly now. You still have one of your grandparents, so you're trying to take care of your grandparent also. And that's an admirable thing and an honorable thing to do, because we should do that when we have family members who are elderly family members who are in need of assistance. We want to be there for them. Okay. Having said that, you have siblings, and you also have nieces and nephews. You don't have children of your own. So you're only one person. And you're not married. You didn't say any of this in your communication, but God allowed me to see in that secret place of your life. So you are a singular individual, one person trying to carry the load because the rest of the family is not responsible and does not want the burden of trying to care for your elderly parents or for your grandparent. So think about this. Their excuse is because you're single, you have more time. You also have a very large job, so your career takes up a lot of your time. You spend a lot of your time when you're not focusing on your career, taking care of your parents and one of your grandparents. So that's a good thing. You're doing all of the things that you need to do. But they're overloading you. So they've got to pick up some of the slack. But you're not going to be able to teach them how to pick up or even to help them realize that they're not carrying their load. Their thought process is, as long as you do it, it doesn't need to be done. They don't have to pick up part of the load. So the way that you're going to find it necessary to address that is simply by doing the things that your parents expect you to do and that your grandparent expect you to do. But everything else that needs to be done, you need to allow someone else to pick up that slack, that load, because you're going to wear yourself out. You're going to allow them to wear you out. And that's not going to, here's the problem with that. It's not healthy for you. Even though you're an individual, a single person, a single career person with no children, even though you're one person who doesn't have to take care of children, you don't have a spouse to take care of, pardon me, all of that is fine because you're doing what needs to be done for your parents and for your grandparents. But all the other, all three, you didn't tell me this, but all three of your siblings who are not carrying any of the load, just loading more on you. Every time and here's what you're going to have to do. So every time they call you, because see, your parents and your grandparents understand. They know what you do. So when something needs to be done, they call your siblings so that you don't get overloaded. Your siblings then call you and tell you what your parents and your grandparents need above and beyond what you're already doing. And what you're going to have to do is when they call you and tell you what your parents said to them or your grandparents said to them, your grandmother, just to be specific, when they call you and ask you to do it and tell you they don't have time to do it, tell them neither do you. Because there's a reason that your parents and your grandmother are calling them and asking them to do certain things. The problem is they didn't overload you with it. So you're correct. They are overloading you with it because you're allowing them to overload you with family obligations. So you're still going, and watch this. The things that you're doing are important. You're still going by your parents' home every single day after putting in a 12-hour day because you have such a big job. Well, and right now even though we're all working from home, most of us, you leave your home every day to go to your parents. You leave your parents' home and you go back home, and the next day starts all over again. So you do that every single day. And then every Saturday and every Sunday. So you run errands for them on Saturday, and then on Sunday, you go by and have dinner with them. And the problem with that is that you're doing what you're supposed to do, and everyone else is finding excuses not to do their part. So you're going to have to just stop doing what they call and ask you to do. Your concern is it won't get done for your parents or your grandmother, and the reality is it will get done because your parents aren't going to let them drop the ball. Your parents just conclude because you're doing it that you had the time to do it, but they still keep trying to delegate some of the responsibilities to your siblings. And you have 3 other siblings. And even though, they have a couple of children, but the children aren't, listen, I know that as children get older, they become even more of a responsibility. But they have children who are capable of taking care of themselves. I mean, teenagers capable, those who have children, teenagers that are capable of taking care of themselves while they assist their parents and their grandparents. So you've just got to stop taking on what they load on you, and allow them to do their part. Now, it would be different if you had different family dynamics. But your family dynamics are that your siblings have a good relationship with your parents, they have a good relationship with their grandmother, but they're just not responsible. They don't want to be responsible. Let me rephrase that. And the older your parents get, when your grandmother is already much older and your parents are getting older, they know that the older they get, the more responsibility it is going to be for caring for them. And that's okay. Because they're the family patriarch and matriarch. And it's okay that your parents are asking you all to do certain things for them that they no longer feel like enduring. It's okay. You know, they have some health issues, and it's understandable. You know, we're trying to get to the point that as we become we're here. Those of us who are becoming seniors, in your case, and those of us who are seniors, we're trying to take care of ourselves so that we don't get to the place that we have to totally depend on our children. But the reality is that your parents are not there. There are some things they need all of you to do, and that's not a bad thing. However, I'm going to encourage you to let your siblings do their part, because it is overloading you. And it's what happens if you become ill? Then they'll step up, because now you're not able to do. But why would you work yourself into a state of unhealthy consciousness when you have 3 other siblings who are capable of helping you bear some of the load? Now, you're willing to not only run errands and spend time with them and you know, assist them financially in some aspect. You're willing to do all of those things. So you're doing your part. You're not even asking them to really do anything for your parents financially. You're just asking them to carry some of the load of running the errands and going, you know, being present more frequently. Because they're leaving that up to you also. The once a week pop-in visits that your siblings may be doing or may not be doing are not everything that your parents and your grandparent need. You're doing that, but they're not doing that. You know, every other week, a visit, maybe call them on the phone. Some of them, you know, call them on the phone. Maybe the visits are even less frequent. But let's just focus on you, and that is you remaining healthy so that you can do what you have been doing for your parents and your grandparents. Let them carry the load of whatever your parents asked them to do or whatever your grandmother asked them to do. Let them carry that load. Let them do that, and you'll do what God has placed in your heart to do and assigned for you to do, to care for your parents and your grandmother. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will place you into our queue so that you can become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest and fastest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill. And if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill at T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your husband says that as you get older, you are becoming grumpier. And you disagree. You said, however, you disagree. and want to know how you can make him realize that it's not true. Well, here's the problem. The problem is the grumpier spirit he's talking about is his perception of you looking for methods to become angry about something so that you can eliminate some of your anxiety. You are looking for some way to become agitated or combative because you're feeling anxious. You are really feeling as though you have no other way to really pour out your anxiety. So here's the reality though. The reality is that he has decided that you're being grumpy now, and that it's only going to get worse. And so you have to recognize that it's important for each of us to examine ourselves. So one of the things I share with all of our listeners and viewers is that every last Sunday of the month, we have Holy Communion in our church. And one of the things that the scripture constantly reminds us in Holy Communion is that we should be examining ourselves. We should constantly examine who we are and what we become. And the reason we do that at the end, and I know a lot of churches do it the first Sunday of the month, some churches do it every Sunday. That's all good. Everyone's got their own process of having Holy Communion. The reason we do it at the end of the month is so that we've lived the whole month, and at the end of the month we have the opportunity to examine ourselves. Now, I don't suggest that we don't do that on a more frequent basis. I'm just saying that for us in our church, every month, at the end of the month, we examine ourselves. What have we done to enhance the quality of our life all month long? What have we done to improve our attitude, our behavior, our character, our commitment? All of those things require us to examine ourselves continuously. So you have to examine yourself and say, is there something else I can do to eliminate some of my anxiety as opposed to being grumpy? Just for no reason. Just deciding that at some particular moment, there's something that's going to trigger me, that's going to allow me to lash out with anger because I'm anxious about something, or I feel like I need to eliminate some of my anxiety. And that's what you're doing. And that's what he's perceiving. He's realizing that the older you get, the grumpier you become. And that's his perception. So now you have to examine yourself. And you have to say, you don't agree with him because you don't want to agree with him. You don't want to accept the fact that, okay, I'm becoming a grumpy spirit. You know, life hasn't been perfect, and so now I have a reason to be grumpy. You know, you're not the only one. People do this all the time. And one of the things that I often remind people is, if it's not a matter of life and death, it's really not that important. Listen, I know there are some people who have mental health issues that have gone undiagnosed, and consequently they don't understand why they do some of the things they do. But that's not your case. You are well aware of what you're doing, but you think it's okay to do it because it's not harming anyone. You know, you're not hurting anyone physically. You have to remember, that's one of the reasons that so many people get divorced in this country after being married for 30 years. Because one person has an attitude problem, the other person has a behavioral problem. There's a lot of different reasons. But one of the things you don't want to destroy a marriage is the attitude and what we say. So, think about this. Sometimes you can't unring the bell. So before you ring the bell, you have to say to yourself, well, you can never unring the bell. So you have to say to yourself before you ring the bell, is it worth ringing the bell, knowing that the sound of in other words, what I'm about to say is going to escalate into something much greater. And it really may only escalate into something, so, those who are not in abusive relationships physically and mentally, it may only escalate into something that is going to create an argument. But the problem with an argument is that there is no peace. And if there is no peace, God is not in that. Because God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. If there is no peace, God is not in it. And if there is no peace, you're not going to have joy. And if you have no joy, you've diminished the quality of your life instead of enhancing the quality of our lives. So we have to be willing to examine ourselves and determine what we can do every single day to enhance the quality of our lives, or even to enhance the quality of life for someone else. We really have to focus on who we really want to be. Do you really want to be the person who is known for having a bad attitude? Do you really want to be that person? I know there are people who go through life thinking, if I go through life with a bad attitude, I become the squeaky wheel, and if I become the squeaky wheel, I'm going to get hurt. The squeaky wheel will get oiled for a while until the oil runs dry. The can runs out. And then there is no more oil. And then what you have to do is eliminate the squeaky wheel. We've got to think about these things. We have to think more about what's really important in our lives. And it all begins with, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So it all begins with the mouth, with the heart, and then it ends with the mouth. I've got to be heard. I've got to make certain that I get my point across. But the reality is, sometimes if we just listen, in the end we get a better result. Sometimes we just need to listen, and not just hear, but listen. And then you can make a decision on how you want to respond to what you've heard. Now, what your husband is saying to you, and I'm going to respond on his behalf, okay? Because God allowed me to see in that secret place of your life. Here's what your husband's saying to you. He's already tried tuning you out, and that worked for a while. But now, the grumpy spirit that you have is causing a cloud to exist in your household. It's creating a cloud of discomfort for both of you. It's creating an environment that may not be sustainable if you continue with the same grumpy spirit. Because at some point in time, that spirit is going to take control of your life, and you won't be able to rid yourself of it, because it will be who you become. You don't want to become that. We all need to be concerned about what we become as we grow older. We want to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become, and we want to experience the fullness of God in all of our lives and maximize the fullness of God in all of our lives. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, check for their store hours. Stop in at their retail store. They have everything that a man could possibly need. They have shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories If you are not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Terrett at ctshirts.com. They will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And The White Company, located in London, the UK, they also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. So if you're in New York, check for their store hours, stop in at the retail store. They have everything you could possibly need: home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. If you're not in New York, you can order from The White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you and your significant other have been living together for 3 years. However, you both have decided you want to go your own way after the pandemic has come to an end. That's what you said. Okay. So first of all, let me say this. You both have made a decision based on being in this environment during a pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, you were living together and you were having what we would call a joyful relationship. So, having said that, having a little technical difficulty here, having said that, you want to sit down together and really not hash out, because that's what you've been doing that brought you to this conclusion, but really sit down and talk about the COVID fatigue. Has it changed your behaviors? Has it caused either of you some anxiety that you didn't experience before? Has it caused the two of you to respond to one another in a way that is irreparable? You really have to sit down and have that conversation. And then once you've sat down and had that conversation, then you have to decide, if we're not going to be together, what is the exit strategy for you both? What does it look like that you're going to part and go your separate ways? So you don't have, at this point, you're renting you're still renting. So you haven't purchased a home together, so you don't have that to unravel. I get it. There are things that you both feel will make it easy for you to part and go your separate ways. You have to decide, is that the easy way out, or is it that you really need to look at what you've been able to accomplish even during the pandemic, how God has been gracious and merciful and sustained you during the pandemic and allowed you not only to live through the pandemic, but to thrive through the pandemic. So you both have been working from home. You've been able to get your work done. You've been able to live comfortably. You're both really going through something emotional based on this pandemic that I really think you need to, well, I don't think about this. God has shown me that you need to sit down and have those conversations. You really need to have those conversations before you decide to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What is it that has brought the two of you to the decision that you should go your separate ways and start all over? Because that's exactly what you will be doing. Now, is it possible to start all over? Of course, it is. I mean, you're living, you're in good health, you're able to start all over. You're able to find ways to start all over. Sure, you can do that. However, is that going to enhance the quality of both of your lives? That's what you have to decide. Is that really going to enhance the quality of both of your lives? Or do you need to sit down, examine the pandemic fatigue, and examine how merciful and how gracious and merciful God has been to both of you, during this time, and what you have to look forward to in the future should you make the decision that you're going to continue building